Hello, I'm Emma McClendon, Associate Curator of Costume at the Museum at MFIT, and Curator of Power Mode, The Force of Fashion, an exhibition in the museum's Fashion and Textile History Gallery. Please join me as I walk through some of the key themes and pieces from the show in this short video. The word power gets thrown around a lot in relation to fashion. Power dressing, power heels, the power suit. But what do these terms actually mean? What makes a garment powerful? And what type of power are we referring to when we use the word in connection with fashion? The exhibition takes these complex questions as its starting point to consider the power dynamics inherent in clothing across 5 themes: military uniforms, status dressing, the suit, resistance or protest dressing, and lastly, sex and fetish wear and their relationship with power dressing. A core idea that runs throughout the exhibition is that clothing is a social language. Whether or not you are interested in fashion with a capital F, the moment you choose to put an item of clothing on your body, be it a leather jacket, a suit, a fur coat, or even jeans and a t-shirt, you are making your body socially legible to people around you. A goal of this exhibition is to help visitors better understand the power dynamics inherent in all clothing that we wear. In each section, menswear and womenswear are shown side by side, and pieces from as early as the 18th century are juxtaposed with more contemporary pieces. My hope in organizing the show in this way is that these pairings will help bring out the layered meanings in each piece and help show how these meanings have evolved over time. Also in each section, there are pieces that will be immediately recognizable to visitors, pieces that you will see and think, yes, I understand why that's here. But then there are others that might seem confusing at first, which I hope will spark curiosity. For example, in the military section that opens the exhibition, on one side of the room, recognizable military uniforms are paired with fashion adaptations. Military uniforms are perhaps the most obvious example of clothing designed with power in mind. They combine tailoring with an elaborate visual code of patches, braiding, stripes, colors, and metalwork that make the soldier a walking extension of the state's power. The uniform signals the wearer is trained in combat and has access to weapons. In the fashion versions, the same colors, textiles, buttons, etc. become visual shorthand for the authority of the military. But a company logo replaces the state seal. It is the power of association. On the opposite side of the room, 2 shiny silver ensembles by Philip Plant and Gareth Pugh might seem surprising within the military section. They look futuristic and otherworldly, part superhero, part robot. The 2 looks take inspiration from medieval suits of armor, and I wanted to include them here to highlight the power of fashion as protection. The power of fashion isn't just offensive and aggressive. It can also just as often be defensive power. As Bill Cunningham once said, fashion is the armor to survive everyday life. The next room of the exhibition turns to consider status dressing. Here, the power is economic rather than militant. One side of the room concentrates on the power of materials. Ornately woven textiles like brocades and velvets, as well as furs, fine metals, and jewels, were all expensive and ostentatious. Wearing them conveyed wealth, dominant social position, and therefore power. But the meaning of materials changes over time. Today, we do not think of textiles as status symbols in the same way as they were viewed in the 18th century. In the 1700s, textiles were incredibly expensive and precious. They were handed down in wills and kept for generations. So an ensemble like this robe à la Française would have immediately conveyed the wearer's wealth and power from the sheer amount of costly brocade fabric used to create it. Today, brocades have been replaced by logos, brand names, and it bags. From Chanel's distinctive wool suit to a recent Balenciaga puffer coat, the power of the object rests in its recognizable connection to a luxury designer name. From status dressing, the exhibition then moves to a deep dive into the suit. The suit is often considered synonymous with power. But why? It connects back to the suit's emergence as menswear during the 19th century, a period of strict gender roles. Men occupied positions of power in politics and business, while women were relegated to the home. As a result, the suit became the de facto uniform within the spaces of power. It is therefore not surprising that as women tried to infiltrate these spaces, they would adopt and adapt the suit. From the suffragettes' white suits to Yves Saint Laurent's loose smoking and pantsuits, the suit-clad woman has become as a potent power symbol, particularly again in recent years with Hillary Clinton's white suit at the 2016 DNC or AOC's white suit at the 2019 State of the Union. But the suit-clad woman still uses a language of power defined by men and menswear. In the next section, the exhibition looks at the relationship between fashion and resistance dressing. There is an immediate tension between resistance clothing and fashion, because true resistance clothing is seen as authentic, whereas fashion versions are pushed aside as surface-level appropriation, empty commodification. And this view is not wrong. Take the hippies of the 1960s, for example. They started dressing in this way, buying pre-worn or surplus denim from flea markets, and patching, embroidering, and personalizing it to immediately convey their political ideology and opposition to the shiny, disposable post-war consumerist lifestyle they felt was destroying our society and planet. Of course, in so doing, they created a distinctive look that got picked up by the fashion industry and turned into hippie chic luxury products. For example, the hippie chic jeans here from Tom Ford's 1999 collection for Gucci sold for upwards of $3,000. But the relationship between fashion and resistance isn't so simple. There are designers like Kirby Jean Raymond for his brand Pierre Moss, who use the runway as a site for protest. Each one of his collections is a statement on the systemic racism and racial inequality in the US. This look is from his fall 2018 collection for Pierre Moss. He was inspired by the legacy of 19th century black cowboys who have largely been forgotten. For the collection, he fused Western wear details like yoking, chaps, and wide-brim hats with clothing that pejoratively is often called street style, such as hoodies, tracksuits, t-shirts, and sneakers. Each look has the biting slogan "As USA as You" emblazoned across it, a comment on the whitewashing of American culture. Positioned here between a MAGA hat and a pussy hat, the grouping speaks to the political potency of clothing in our current cultural moment. The exhibition then concludes in a section that considers the relationship between sex and power dressing. It looks specifically at items of fetish wear that have made their way into our fashion vocabulary. Many of these items, from thigh-high boots, leather pants, PVC, harnesses, and exposed zippers, have become mundane. But when they first began appearing on the runway, they caused polarizing reactions. For example, Gianni Versace's 1992 bondage collection outraged half the people who saw it. They were offended and called it objectifying. But the other half thought the models looked like Amazonian dominatrix warriors and thought it was incredibly empowering. This speaks to the importance of interpretation in power dressing. Power means different things to different people at different times, sometimes even at the same time. Whether a garment is understood as powerful depends on both the wearer and observer. Take the high-heeled shoe, one of the most vilified fashion objects within traditional feminist discourse. It pitches the wearer up so she can't walk or run easily. It changes her gait so that she sways her hips, emphasizing her curves and making herself into an object for male visual enjoyment. This is all true. But what's also true is that countless women and men talk about the feeling of putting on a high heel, the feeling of their foot in the shoe, the way it makes them taller, the way it changes their walk, and how this makes them feel powerful. This is a key element of power dressing. It's not just about how these garments look, but also about how they feel. And this is true for all the sections in the show. The feeling of putting on a uniform, a suit, wearing a leather jacket, the feeling of fur against the skin. All of this contributes to the psychological effect of clothing and our understanding of clothing as powerful. Thank you for listening and joining me on this tour of Power Mode at the museum at FIT.